Jigs and Bigs is proud to announce we're being supported by Old Glory Outdoors. They're a veteran-owned company that carries fishing and hunting gear. Plus, they're highly active in supporting veteran organizations and charities. Old Glory is an authorized dealer of favorite rods, FX rods, Guggen baits, X-Zone lures, Sixth Sense, and many more. There's a brick-and-mortar store located in East Brookfield, Massachusetts, but you can also order online at oldgloryoutdoors.com. They ship anywhere in the lower 48 states or order online and pick up at the store. When you order, use the promo code Jigs and Bigs and you'll save 10% off your complete order. Plus, you'll help support the show. Make sure to check out the apparel line called OGO Gear while you're there. Old Glory Outdoors believes in the slogan "Start 'em young" to keep kids away from screens and enjoying nature. They've got a full array of live bait too. Check out oldgloryoutdoors.com and use the promo code Jigs and Bigs. Save some money and gear up now. Hey guys, how we doing? It's Bobby Roast Beef for Jigs and Bigs. Got another episode for you. Just want to say thank you to everybody who's listened already, man. The numbers for the listens that we have had just in the last week have been really, really amazing, and I think that's a big that's a big testament to some of the Facebook groups, the fishing-based Facebook groups that I'm a member of. I've shared the link there, and I mean, you guys, I've gotten a lot of feedback. People are emailing, which is pretty freaking cool, man. I'm really, really excited that all of that is really going on. So anyway, in this episode, let's talk about what I do here. I get to have a little session where I talk a little bit about fishing, share some stories with this one guy that he and I have together, and we kind of, we've been fishing for a long time together. This is my good buddy Paul. Paul, you will hear referenced a lot. I'm hoping that you'll hear him more often as a regular appearance on this show. So that'll be great. We have been friends for a long, long time together, 20 years, 21 years actually. And I mean, it's been a long time. We played music together. I mean, we've done all kinds of crazy stuff. And fishing is our passion. We share together at this stage in our life, which is pretty awesome. I'm psyched about that. But this is great to do. So I'm going to kick things over to him, and he and I. We recorded this just last night, and it was a pretty good episode, guys. One quick mention: if you guys are interested in being a part of the show, getting involved and sharing your stories and kind of like, even if you have something helpful or a tip or something that you can offer up to somebody, then fantastic. The best way to get in touch with me now is to email the show, Jigs and Bigs, all spelled out, no spaces or underscores, Jigs and Bigs 413 at gmail.com. Jigs and Bigs 413 at gmail.com is the official podcast email address. So if you want to do something, you want to get involved with the show, you want to be a guest and share some stories, that's great. As this continues to get bigger and better, and people become more of like a revolving door of like some regulars who are on there. We're talking about possibly doing some roundtable stuff. We have 4 or 5 different guests call in together. We just have a great conversation. But it was really, really great. Check it out. We're going to share some memories. It's going to be pretty good. And I will see you guys on the other end of this.
Swimming deserves a quiet night.
How you guys doing? I am Bobby Roast Beef. Welcome to another episode, the second one of Jigs and Bigs. Thanks so much for coming and checking it out. That intro there is there on purpose, and we'll acknowledge that in just a few minutes. But Well, we'll get to it at one point or another. There's going to be a lot of discussing of a lot of different things tonight. Guys, I am joined by my good friend Paul Watrous, or as I like to call him, Pavlik, Big Sexy, Pablo Honey, what have you, all of these things. He's getting his work situation all together over there, his little workstation for this show. We're going to share some conversation about fishing and some of the amazing stories that we have had through the years, of which there have been many, many, many ones. So, Paul, before we go any further, I'm going to do just some like warm-up stuff to kind of like break the ice and stuff. I may not use any of this stuff. It might be gold. Who knows? I need you to pick a color. Red, green, blue, or black.
Green all the way, sir.
He's going green. Okay, here we go. So just a little bit of information about these questions here. I use a product periodically called Poddex on all of my podcasts. And this is just a great way to kind of like get non-industry specific sort of questions to kind of loosen up guests, get sometimes you get just absolute gold. And I like to kind of use it as a gamifying way to engage with my guests that are on my shows and keep things kind of interesting. If you've listened to any of my other podcasts, you've already heard me use these before, and they can be pretty fun. So to give you a heads up, I'm only using the green deck here, and the reason for that is because this is what they call the What the Heck deck. Now, this is the one where there are questions who maybe push the envelope a little bit more. Maybe they get a little, they get a raised eyebrows sort of reaction from some folks. So this will be kind of good, because Paul and I, we have a good 22 years of friendship
20.
now.
20.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was right.
No, we started hanging
right
out in the late 90s is when we started hanging out. It was like 1999. So yeah, like 21 years. Holy crap. You're what? How old are you? 41 now?
I'm about to be 41.
You're about to be 41. God damn, man. Yeah, that's the other thing too. For people on the bass fishing, like I want to say content creation area, like this kind of stuff, we old, man. We are really old. I love when like I see like on Guggen Squad they refer to the 30 some odd year old guys like Lake Fork guy or Lunkers TV. They refer to them as like grandpa, and I'm like, no, please. All right, so random question. I'm going to take one of these here from the Green Poddex deck right here. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, this is a real good one. Question is this: has anyone started a rumor about you? If so, what was it about?
Wow. I know there's been some good ones.
I know there has. Absolutely. You can't play live music for as long as you and I have and not have something come up.
True.
True.
I honestly can't think of anything good.
Huh.
That sucks. I know I've had some good ones.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to let you kind of talk about like how you got into fishing, like explain that story of like how you came to like fall in love with fishing and everything. And then you and I will just kind of riff when you get to the point where you and I started fishing together.
All right.
I love it.
All right, cool. So I started fairly young. My dad wasn't really an outdoorsy guy, so he never got me into it. But for some reason, I had this huge interest in it since I was like 8 years old. So when I came over here, for those who don't know me, I migrated from Poland many, many years ago when I was 9 years old. So the first summer we went for a camping trip, and I begged my mom for a rod. So she bought me this cheap rod.
Yep.
It was Otis that we camped at.
Oh, okay. Otis Reservoir, right? Yeah.
Yes. So, first day there, we set up camp. I grabbed my rod and I went off on my own. I cast out first cast, nothing. Second cast, I don't know. Obviously, zero experience at that point, but it felt like it was a bite. I set the hook. I started reeling it in, and I think I was just kind of hung up on something because I ended up breaking the rod. So, so it was like literally second cast, rod broken. So I gave up on fishing.
Yep.
For a little bit. So then my sister's boyfriend, who was 10 years older than me, he was all about fishing. So he started taking me when I was like 13, 14.
Nice.
We used to go to Indian Leap in the orchard.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar. Now,
we used to.
is that the Chicopee River that goes there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Chicopee River, right off of Indian Leap. I bought a rod, and we started catfishing. So treble hooks, liver.
Yep.
Cast it out. Wait for the tip to start shaking, and you boom, pull them in. So that was my fishing experience for the first 5-6 years. So that's all we did. It was just an excuse to go and smoke cigarettes with a much older dude and catch some fish.
Yeah,
basically. So then I took a few years off, work and everything else, so
sure.
I just kind of got out of I stopped hanging out with him. He broke up with my sister, so just had nobody to fish with, and just kind of lost interest, and other things, started interesting.
Sure.
But then, fast forward a bunch of years, I meet my wife, and her dad was huge into fishing.
Yeah.
So that's when I started picking it back up. But we'd go out, and he is an old school Polish. He was an old school Polish traditional fisherman, meaning hook, crawler. Whatever he catches, throws it in a bucket, and that wasn't like, it was a good way for us to break the ice and actually get together and bond. And it was fun. Loved it. Then I started getting interested in bass fishing. Just like you said in the first episode, like something about it was just like, whoa, I want to get into it.
Yeah.
So, I started trying different lures. It was very unsuccessful, for a long time. And he would always criticize me. He's like, "Oh, just put a worm on. What are you doing playing with that stuff?" But I'm like, just let me try it. Let me try it.
Yeah. And
I think that was, that was about when you and I started fishing, because I wanted to kind of, he was not a catch and release guy.
No.
I've always been, like every once in a while, I catch a panfish. Those are kind of yummy. So, but these waters here, you don't want to touch that stuff. But
that's a big part of it.
Exactly. But so, because I wanted to try other things, not just a crawler, I being criticized all the time because he was traditional and thought that was the only way to fish, I started going off on my own. And that's when I invited you out. So This is where our story began.
Yeah, that's where everything kind of lines. And, I had never thought about this, but like you mentioned the first episode when I talked about how I, as a young kid, how I started fishing, and I started with mainly like going out with my father, specifically for trout. I feel like that in an odd kind of way explains a lot about the way that each of us fishes. Because I think it was last year you said, you're much more of like a finesse fisherman than I am. And right. I feel like, 100%, because I was using like ultralight equipment, like when I was a super young kid, when that the first like ultralight, gear was like sort of like readily available and kind of all over the place, at least in the places where we were getting tackle. So I had been using that stuff forever and was just like, how the hell do you catch like just these monster catfish or anything? Never realizing like that, no, it's an entire different like leg of part of the store. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, totally.
So it was, and I think there is something to that. Like I feel like that kind of carried along like through. But you're right, catfish are damn tasty, man. It's crazy. So before we go any further into like any of our specific stories or anything like that, give me your top 3 favorite lures to throw. Something you would do all year round. Top 3.
All year.
Yep.
Spinnerbait.
Mm-hmm. I knew that was going to be on yours. I knew it 100%.
Definitely spinnerbait. Not a lot of success with it, but whatever success I had with it was awesome. Yeah. The frog. But it's not a year-round lure. Like you can't fish it all year round. But it's definitely one of my favorites.
Yep.
And I would say recently the jig.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been talking about the jig for years, and I'm like, I just had no faith in it.
Oh,
until this year. And I've tried. I try it just like you do. You're like you want to learn how to work a new lure, so you dedicate a certain amount of time to just messing with it and learning how it works, learning what works with it. I've done the same stuff, and so the jig was one of the ones because you had so much faith in it, and so I was like, I everybody swears by them, so there's got to be something to it. I'm doing something wrong. So for 2 or 3 years, periodically throwing the jig out there, and I'm catching nothing, until this season,
Yeah.
This season, all the fish I caught so far were on the jig.
That's pretty. I mean, that says something right there too. Because there were a few times this year where we've gone out and you would throw it and you're like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. But there was something like when you first got that first jig bite. I'm like, it's like the saying, the tug is the drug. It's like, snap. You're just like, holy crap. And it's like, it's just one of those things. Like, I could never, ever see myself going out and not having a jig handy. Like if it was, even if I was only bringing a handful of lures, I would have a jig with me. And most of the time I have a rod dedicated to it so that there's just always a jig on. Somebody even had I had seen somewhere where they said if you have a strike on one lure, let's say you're fishing, I don't know, let's say you're throwing out something like, I'm thinking it's large profile, maybe like a swim bait or something like that, and they miss it. Or you miss a fish on that, you could throw a jig in that location, and it's handy to have it there because you might be able to pick that bite up by altering what you're throwing, and just having a jig there, it's so flexible. I don't know.
Right.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, I'm a new fan.
Yeah, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I was like, I knew the day was going to come, and I'm just like, yes, absolutely. But that's interesting because so you're a spinnerbait, you're a jig, and you're a frog, like all a power fishing, I would say all power fishing gear for the most part.
Right.
My lures are a little bit different. I definitely a jig for sure. But then also I would say, I think I would have to say that the second lure would probably be I'd have to say it's a weedless Senko, Texas or wacky rigged, like a weedless Senko. Just any time of year, I can make that work for the most part. And then the last one is a Ned rig at 100%. Not even necessarily like a Ned rig traditionally, like with a mushroom head or something like that, but even like modifying it somehow with a different hook. There was one I just came across, and I shared something today on the Jigs and Bigs Instagram about what they call it's like a modified Ned rig with a Nico hook and a Nico weight. And it's
saw
called,
that.
Yeah,
I saw that.
And I heard about it in another podcast, and I was like, that's fantastic because you have at the other end, you have that weight. I wouldn't use this with one of those rattling Neds that I like that has the rattle capsule in there because it would just destroy it. But modifying that small, compact presentation is just awesome. One of the biggest fish I ever caught was on a finesse jig, a 1/4 ounce finesse jig, really, really small. And we'll get to that. I'll get to that story someday, but that's the one I mentioned in the first one where there's no pictures, which sucks, but for very good reason there's no pictures.
Oh, yeah. I remember that story.
Oh, my goodness.
That was on a Ned rig, huh?
No, that wasn't it was a finesse jig. It was a real, it was 1/4 ounce finesse jig, yeah. And it was, at the time, I think it was just one of those times where I was out and I was like, I'm going to throw a jig. I'm just going to toss this thing around and see what we can, hook up with. And it was a 1/4 ounce finesse jig with like a ball head, and it was just green pumpkin and just this monster just like smashed it. And that's one of the things like that I've started to really work on, and I've seen you do it too, is looking at like other surroundings and saying, so what am I actually working with here? Where would I find fish where I'm at?
Right.
And that, there's this one spot you and I fish often, and we can't, unfortunately, right now because of the whole lockdown, but we go there often, and there is a lot of man-made structure in the area where we are. And just something about utilizing the hard surfaces that are there, the concrete and stuff, is just... You can find them so much easier.
Yeah.
Different parts of I'm even now seeing like a different pattern in that one area starting to change up. So it's pretty freaking cool. So let's talk about this. What is catch that you're most proud of? Not necessarily your personal best, but like the catch that you're just like, yes, share that experience with me, walk through it like that, whether I was there or not.
You were not there for that one, but it was the same spot. where you saw me catch my personal best. I was
okay.
I was with my father-in-law and his cousin, and as usual, we get to the spot. They take out their little cups with the crawlers, and I take out my gear, and he just looks at me and he's like, "Oh, really? What are you throwing?" I'm like, "It's a frog." And he's like, "What are you gonna do with that? You're not gonna catch anything with that."
Yeah.
And I was like, I caught a nice fish on this before. I'll give it a try. And second cast in, that little spot where the lily pads were kind of like in the middle, like just a small little, what spot I'm talking
Tiny
about.
little pocket. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I threw the frog over the lily pads and I worked it back slowly. And this monster, to me, it was a monster because it was my personal best. It was probably like around 5 pounds. This fish just jumps out of the water and devours the frog. And my father-in-law, he just freaking his jaw dropped. He's like, "Oh," And so I fight it for a little bit. It wasn't, it was definitely my biggest fish, and I reel it in, and he his jaw dropped. He's like, "What the hell?" So not only was it one of my, if not my best fish, but then I look over at him and he opens his box because he had a bunch of lures with him. He just never believed in them and just refused to use them. So he just takes out some random lure. I don't even remember what it was. It was either spoon or something. I don't know. And he ties it on. And the rest of the day, he was trying to catch something with an artificial lure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so
he saw it happen for you.
It was just an awesome, yeah, right, exactly. And he spent his entire life fishing one way, So for him to go, and try something new, that was really cool. So it was one of my best fish, if not the best fish. Plus, I kind of made a believer out of a very stubborn man, if you will.
Oh, absolutely, man, 100%. And that's crazy because it's especially crazy because with the frog bite, really. I would say any topwater bite is one of the most epic, majestic sort of experiences that you can have as an angler.
Absolutely.
But the frog bite is not easy to really get a good quality hook set because there's a finesse to it. And I have had countless blow ups on frogs that I've been throwing. I've been throwing them on the wrong gear. I know it, I know it. But it's a timing issue, and it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to get it right. So the fact that you were actually able to make that happen for such a non-believer of artificial lures, that's pretty amazing when you think about it. It really, really kind of is. You're sort of oh, well, we're going to work this out. It's just unbelievable. Paul, what's your favorite season to fish and why? What makes that season your favorite?
I like fall.
Yeah?
I like fall fishing.
Yeah, fall fishing is good.
Oh, why is it my favorite? It just seems to be where I get the most bites. It just seems I have the most success in the fall. And it's, summer's done. It starts cooling down, but it's still warm enough where you can, go out and not freeze, in the wind or, it's just nice weather and the bite is always on for me.
Yeah, fall is definitely one of my favorites. I feel like they start to get active again. I remember last October, I had a killer month, and it was great. I mean, not necessarily huge fish, but,
right.
It's tough to say because this is the first time I've ever had a good spring. And what I've heard for years is that if you're going to catch a personal best, if you're going to break a record for yourself, that it's going to be in the spring because the size of the fish, because the way they're feeding up, it's more likely then than anything else. I mean, I caught my personal best in July or August, and smoked it. It was just that was a fat fish over at Pepper Mills Pond. You remember the one?
Yeah,
on that black and blue jig. I mean, that was late July, early August, something like that. And that was a beast right there.
That was a nice fish.
It is. You're right. It's but I know what you mean. There's something about when fall just in general is one of my favorite. I'm kind of the most basic bitch angler that's out there. I mean, I'm all about the fall season. I love apple picking and all that crap. You know what I mean? But it's like there's something about you start reaching for the flannel before you go out or the hoodie, and you're like, all right, cool. It's just plus I'm over 300 pounds. It's like if I go out in the sun like that, it's exhausting. It's
Very
nice
much.
to not have to battle that. Is there any kind of like a specific weather condition that would make you decide to call it a day?
Yeah, heavy rain and heavy winds.
Yeah.
Definitely heavy winds over the rain. I can deal with a little bit of rain.
Yeah, heavy winds are rough. Like today was really bad. Today was awful.
It was awful.
I can deal with rain. And depending on the time of the year, I will deal with rain. Like if it's in the summertime and it's just like dumping rain, as long as there's no thunder or lightning, I'm going to stay out there.
Right.
I'll deal with that. But yeah, wind makes it really, really difficult, especially like wind when you're like, what's really bad is in the spring and fall, early spring or late fall when it starts getting real cold and that wind is ripping and you're using something light like a Ned rig. Trying to cast that in that wind is awful, depending on your, direction. But it is. It's
right.
It's crazy. What kind of bodies of water are your favorites and least favorites to fish?
Small to medium ponds are my favorite.
Yep.
And river is what attracts me the least.
I can agree with that. I think there are two totally different types of fishing.
Totally.
And I mean, we don't have in our area, we don't have what I would consider like huge lakes, like large scale lakes per se. I mean, Quabbin qualifies for sure, but you can only fish so much of it. And I don't need, it's such a unique kind of area. And the place we like to fish most in Quabbin is the smaller end of it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm with you with small to medium ponds are usually my favorite. Plus, it's like we're bank anglers. It's like, come on. You kind of have to.
Exactly.
It's not much harder to figure out an entire body of water, when you're doing it from the bank. So the saying is that fishing tackle will catch more suckers than it does actual fish. What is the number one ridiculous fishing tackle trend that in your opinion that's out there in your opinion, and have you been guilty of using it?
Wait, say the first part of the question again.
So like there's an old saying when it comes to fishing where they say that fishing tackle companies catches more suckers than they do actual fish. Like people buying onto stuff, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be amazing. It's radio controlled such and such spinnerbait or whatever it is." They say that I want to know what is the number one most ridiculous trend that you can think of in fishing, and are you guilty of actually trying it?
I don't know if this is the most ridiculous, but this is the one that I'm guilty of trying. It's the banjo minnow.
You tried the banjo minnow?
I still have it.
No way.
I do.
Wow.
I tried the banjo minnow. I don't. Now let me explain myself because it was just it just seemed like such a stupid buy. I just could not imagine it working. But the Chicopee River by my old place where we went when we first started fishing.
Yep.
Remember that spot?
Oh yeah.
I've been to that spot a couple of times, and I watched a dude catch like bass after bass after bass on the banjo minnow.
No,
really?
And
I'm like, I'm telling you, he caught like 4 bass in front of me, and I'm like, I didn't even get a bite. I'm like, what is this guy using? So I'm like, hey, what are you throwing? And he's like, banjo minnow. And he had this like medium, just yellow banjo minnow that he just kept throwing out there. And like literally within half an hour, he caught 4 bass in that one spot.
That's crazy.
So I'm like, I'm sold. I'm gonna buy this. And so I ordered it online and got it. Was all excited, and I went out and I tried to. I believe I've even tried it in front of you at Quabbin. On one of our trips.
You may have. I didn't even realize that you had this thing. So the banjo minnow is kind of like, it's almost like, I mean, I suppose, is it more like a crankbait or like a soft plastic swim bait?
It's like a soft plastic swim bait.
Gotcha.
It just, like the way you're supposed to work it, you were like, it's almost like Like you just jerk it up once and it comes up and it just swims naturally down to the bottom, so it looks like, oh shit, I'm injured and I'm dead, essentially. I mean, there's other ways to fish it, but that was the one that stuck to me the most. But
that's
unbelievable. Yeah.
Because that's like the one. Like most people, at least like in our generation, if you're going to think of like something that was like like as seen on TV, the banjo minnow is like top of the list. And I've heard that people do catch fish on. I'm like, I mean, let's be honest. You can catch fish on, a lot. Most things, when you think about like when you're throwing a spinnerbait, like really, like when people or people that throw Alabama rigs, like you don't see that in Massachusetts. I don't think you can throw Alabama rigs in Massachusetts because of the number of hooks. But when you see people in, YouTube videos and stuff that are throwing these things and you're like, that looks like a lampshade or a bunch of coat hangers with a bunch of lures attached to it. Like, how is that being mistaken for a school of fish? And then you have people that talk about like, oh, you should never tie straight braid to your lures because they're going to see the line. And it's like, they're not seeing an A-rig. What the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean? I mean, I've tied straight braid to certain lures, when I was like, either didn't necessarily know any better or was in a hurry, and I've had, for what it's worth, tying straight braid to lures, I have had far less success than I have, actually taking the time and tying a leader and everything else. So I'm a believer, but it's just, I don't know. It's kind of crazy the way that it works out. It's funny. Oh man, the banjo minnow, dude.
The banjo minnow.
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to get one of those for like a trivia prize or something. Oh goodness.
You should. It's a great prize.
I have drank more whiskey since this lockdown than anything else.
Nice.
It's ridiculous. I opened this brand new bottle. I've had this bottle arrive for like a year. I opened it and it's almost gone. I'm a little concerned of where it's been because I'm like, I've only sat down and actually had anything to drink from this like 4 times. And I'm not one of those people. It's like, I'm going to open up this bottle. It's kicked. That's not me. I usually have bottles of booze for a long time. So
yeah.
Interesting. Like, what do you feel is your strongest suit in fishing?
Wow.
Well, and that's made even more difficult to answer because you and I don't really think highly of ourselves when it comes to fishing.
Well, not only that, but you actually care enough to know what gear you're using.
Oh, that's a good point.
And me, I just don't care. Like, what do you got? What do you got tied on there? Texas rig shit. What kind of line? I don't know. So there's no unusual talents when it comes to my fishing game because I'm just You're just making it happen.
But you catch fish. That's the thing. Catch fish. That's the thing I love about this activity is that, like, you can take it to whichever end you want. You can be as, like, geeky about it as you want. You can be as, like, nonchalant and just, like, roll with it. And you can have results. It's like, for better or worse, you can 100% have results, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, but see, like I do get into majority of the time. I do get into what kind of lure I'm throwing out there, but what I'm tying it on, or what kind of rod I'm rigging it on.
Yeah, matching it to certain stuff.
I don't have a clue.
Yeah, and
the only thing that I know about my gear is that all my rods, except for my light tackle, the spinning reel. The spinning rig that I just got.
Yep.
All of my rods, all I know about them is that they're all 7 feet.
They're all 7 foot.
They're all 7 foot. That's all I know about them.
See, I'm the same way. And the thing is, like, I mean, I've put enough research into it to, like, know I'm using, for some instances, I am using stuff that is not always ideal. Like I'm out there throwing crankbaits on medium heavy sticks, and like that is not necessarily, and I'm doing so with fluorocarbon too. Luckily I use some decent fluorocarbon that's got a little bit of stretch to it. So it's like, I'm not ripping treble hooks out of bass's mouths or anything like that nearly as often as I think I might be. But I do know, like, for example, like specifically with crankbaits, a lot of people, push for more of a medium action rod than a heavy action rod, as far as power goes. And also, like, and I understand sort of that stuff, but I guess, like, I just know that I'm throwing it kind of on the wrong gear sometimes. So I don't know. And then,
but you're still catching fish. So,
well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, is it a matter of opinion for some people, or you know what I mean? Because we're still catching fish. We don't.
Yeah.
I know I'm using the wrong gear for the wrong stuff, but I use what I have, and I just go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, you make a really good point, though. Like, it might be, that's the thing about. Even when you look at, like, different ratings for different rods, there's not really, like, there's a lot of gray area in between. Like, what somebody calls, a moderate action might actually be a little bit fast for, like, another rod manufacturer. You know what I mean? Like, when it comes to reels, I think it's a little bit more cut and dry, a little bit for the most part. But like what some people might think of as a fast gear ratio, other people might be like, oh, well, I use one that's a couple clicks higher. Or, it all depends on, the way you fish too. It's like, there's I'll go back to crankbaits. Like a lot of people want to use the slower gear ratio reels on a crankbait. So that way, like when they're like slow rolling a crank, they don't have to painfully slow down. Like if they're, using like a 7-speed or even like I use a 6.4 or a 6.3 to 1 gear ratio reel when I'm using, when I'm fishing crankbaits. And, I just feel like it's easier to burn it, I feel, than it is to slow down. I think I said that right the way that I meant to. So it's like easier to speed up than it is to slow down. So like if I was on one of my like 7-speed reels or something like that, I feel like I would have that much more of a challenge slowing it down to get it to react the right way in the water. But there are people who use like 5-speed reels, that are crazy, crazy slow. And I'm like, it just, that's the thing. It's like, it gets in your head. Like it's sort of like a disease. Like it gets in your head and you're just like, well, maybe I should really dedicate such and such a rig. There's a podcast that I listened to not that long ago that I think is amazing. I think any angler who's getting into this for the first time really should listen to this. Like once they get into that whole like gear hoarding like addiction of like I gotta have 17 different combos and I gotta have such and such and I gotta bring everything with me, and it's not really effective 100% of the time to go and do that kind of stuff. But the podcast it's an episode of Tackle Talk, and I think it's called like the five rod and reel combos every angler needs. And it is great. Like, there's definitely things like when I was listening to it, I was just like, yeah, it's a pretty good combo. There's definitely things that I disagreed with, just because of the way that I necessarily fish. But it's crazy. And then, like, we're talking about gear. Just today, I forget what Facebook group it was, but there was a Facebook group where I saw somebody who had posted, a brand new angler who had maybe been at it for a series of months or maybe a year, had said something about like, is it, I'm using a spinning combo now. I'm looking at a bait caster. Is it worth it for all the hassle? Meaning all of the backlashing and everything else. And a lot of people were jumping on. And I remember when you and I first talked about bait casters, you were like, it's more of like a luxury thing. Like you have the convenience of just being able to cast that much easier. And because fishing is a numbers game, you're able to put that lure in the water without dealing with any bullshit. If I'm not mistaken, right there, that was kind of like the way you had guided me toward it. Because initially I started with a spinning. When you and I started fishing together, you had a couple of bait casters already. And, And I think when I first saw and I didn't see many of them, you don't backlash nearly as much as I do. I'm an idiot. But the very few times that I've seen you backlash, I was like, oh, okay, now I kind of get it. Now, when I first started with a baitcaster, when I went on that kayak trip, I was just trying it for the first time, and I threw a couple of really, really bad bird's nests, really, really bad, and eventually kind of got the mechanics of it down and everything. But there's something to be said. I don't think it's camp like baitcaster or spinning combo. I feel like both have a role to play, and
Yeah.
you definitely have to look at the versatility between the two. I would be comfortable bringing my spinning combo out with almost anything in my tackle bag. I could bring one other bait casting combo and be good to go. As a matter of fact, I could bring one more and be good to go. But I like to bring 4 just for the comfort. I like to have them spooled up with certain line and fish certain stuff on them, and that's just the way I am.
Yeah, I mean, I always come up with a plan. That's why I like to bring all of my rods.
Yeah.
I want to work this. 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 I don't want to bring one rod and constantly retie. I've done that plenty, and it's just and you come in with a game plan. If something's not working, okay, then you retie one rig instead of retying every single time you want to switch up.
That's exactly it. When I first started, I was using one rod, and I would use a snap swivel. I would tie on a snap swivel, and I would just change them out like that. That way I'm this way I can at least be changing quickly. And that's a huge, people will make huge arguments against doing that. But I get it. When it's I got to scale back, I got to keep back, just to save the line. Think about it like that. Every time you're tying off, you're cutting off that much more line. Why would you, if you're bringing one setup, one combo or 2 combos, it's probably in your best interest to kind of think ahead of time and just change out quickly using something like a snap swivel. But yeah, I mean, if you can have multiple rods and say, this is my moving bait rod, this is what I'm going to use for my bottom rod. This is for, jigs and Texas rigs and things like that. And this is my finesse combo or something like that. You kind of have a direction to go in. I think that helps a whole lot.
Oh, definitely.
I'm going to pour another one of these. Look at this. I don't know. Can you see me? Are you looking at the video?
Oh yeah, I see you.
So this was full 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's too much. Too much alcohol.
It cleanses your insides. That's the popular theory amongst the Polish.
I'm cleaning out the
booze.
Coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Because why not? Because every conversation needs to include that.
Mm-hmm.
So might as well.
Man, I'll tell you, dude, it is getting crazy out there. Was it Michigan? They just put a ban on all gas engine boats. I think that's what it is, and there are people that are losing their minds, and understandably so, because some of the reasons are kind of bullshit that they're throwing out there. The reasons why they want to kind of pull the plug on boating in Michigan because of self-quarantining or social distancing, what have you. There's a lot of people that just don't understand what the hell's going on. But our favorite fishing spot we can't get to because it's on a college campus. And they've basically blocked off access to pretty much everything there, which really, really, really sucks. That, I think, is going to be our biggest challenge for the rest of this spring here, is finding and getting as comfortable at new water. We've only been comfortable there for a year, but man, it was nice.
It was.
I know, I think, was it every fish? Oh, but might have been every fish I have caught this year in 2020 has been at that spot. I've fished other places. Oh, no, that's not true. I did catch that big old pickerel at Nashawanak. I did catch that.
You're talking about this year?
Yeah, this year. I did catch that one, over there. But I think every other fish was probably, I could look it up on FishBrain and know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that all the fish that I have caught have been over there. And it's crazy. My March was good. My April, was okay. But April's only not even half over yet, just about half over. But
You caught a couple on at the spot we went to in Ludlow, where I caught that bass that.
oh yeah, what the
caught
hell am
such
I
a-
talking about? Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
you-
I got a couple of
got
really
like
good
two-
ones.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's that, Paul. That's a good
That's-
story. You should tell the story about that 4.76 pounder and 4.76 that you caught over there, and talk about the fallout on Facebook.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
Before I get into that, isn't that where you caught the smallie?
that was where I
Your
caught
first
that smallie.
smallie?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yep. And that was like a
Exactly.
2.4 pound smallie. It was great.
Yeah,
God, that
it was a nice
beautiful.
one.
Oh man.
But anyways, so we were nearing the end of our trip. We were, I think, at the tip of the area. We were at the end of the area where we were exploring.
Yep.
And there was a little bridge there, and I decided to cast right off of there. I was like, see what happened. And it was the jig. It was the black and blue jig.
Black and blue jig is money. And I'll tell you, I'm just going to jump in real quick. At that moment, you were like, hey, I'm going to post up right here and just pop one in. And I'm thinking in my mind, I was like, why? I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, doesn't make sense to me. But then again, I'm an idiot, clearly. So go on.
Oh, maybe that's my special talent. Going back to your question,
Could be.
from a while ago. I just have this stupid sense, where I throw my lure into the stupidest spots, and I end up coming up with fish.
Mhm.
And this is one of those times. This is actually the best one of those times.
Yeah, it is.
So I cast out their first cast. Rob's over on the side trying to cast in some lay down, some cover, and I'm like casting into the open area right off the bridge. And very first cast, feel a little tug, and I'm like, oh. So I set the hook, and pardon the sound effects, especially. I set the hook, and I'm reeling the fish in. Definitely fish on. I'm getting psyched. It's a bass. It's a decent sized bass. And all of a sudden, I get stuck. Okay, so did he wrap around on something or whatever? So I kind of give him some room. He swims away a little bit. I start reeling him in. Boom, I'm stuck. So after a few attempts, I finally see the fish surface, and it's a nice bass. But I can't pull him in. He's tight around something. So about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. I don't know. It felt like forever.
Yep.
But between the two of us trying to kind of get to this fish, I finally loosened it up enough where I reeled it in enough where I could reach it. So I pull it out. We weigh it. Nice fish. We weigh it. It was 4.67, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 4.67.
Yeah.
You're right, not 4.7.
4.67. So we weighed it real quick. I took a picture. Rob took a picture of me with the fish, and he took a shitty picture of the scale shot. So you could see the 4, and that's it.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad picture. Although that said, like that whole battle with you trying to like free the fish up, and ultimately it was basically caught on somebody's discarded fishing line that was hooked up against whatever kind of stump or whatever it was hung up on down there. So you were basically pulling this against two lines.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's crazy. So it was one of these things where it was like, we don't want to endanger, like Paul said, we're both catch and release guys. Like, these aren't our trophies. We take them out of the water, and like the idea is that they go back. We take a quick picture and we go like right from there. We release them right away, because like what good is catching a fish if that fish can't live afterwards, so that it can be caught, when it gains another 2 pounds. For somebody else.
Exactly.
It's like it'll make somebody else's life. That's the idea. Or maybe yours. I've caught fish that I've caught before. I'm sure I have. So it was one of those things. So the picture taking process was very rushed. It was like, let's get it, do it, get this fish back in the water, make sure that it lives, and then, do our thing. So go on.
Right. So we succeeded in that.
Yep.
At one point, you thought that the fish was dead. But anyways, we released the fish. Took the pictures real quick before we released it. So obviously we didn't get a clear shot of the scale. So I don't like to boost my ego or anything. So I have no shame. If I catch a fish that's, under a pound, I'll say it's under a pound. If I think it's 5 pounds, it's 5 pounds. If I weigh it and I get an exact number, I kind of like to stick to that story.
Yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely.
this being close to my personal best, I think,
Yep.
and the biggest fish of the season so far. I was proud of it. I see everybody posting their pictures on Facebook, with all these nice bass, and I'm like, I got shit. So it was the first one that I caught that I was proud of, and I was, first time a part of this group. So I posted it, and I said, hey, nice 4.67 pounder. Finally a fish that I'm proud of.
Oh yeah.
Go me. So, obviously comments. Most of them are like, hey, nice fish.
Yeah. Most
go
of them
you.
just very congratulatory. Like,
Right. And then this guy comes in and says, I don't remember what he said. He said, it's a nice fish. There's no need for exaggeration. That fish is nowhere near over 3 pounds, like 3 pounds tops, And I said, look, we weighed it.
Yeah.
It was 4.67.
Yep.
And he's like, well, there's no reason for exaggeration, blah, 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 he's like, you said around 5 pounds. I said, no, I said 4.67.
Yeah. That's a very, yeah.
And I'm like, look, all I'm saying is, okay, maybe the fish doesn't look so big because it's against my large body. But if I'm giving you a specific number, that means that it's a fact. We waited, which I said before.
And I should throw in there, I had the pictures, but I didn't even send the picture of the scale to you because I knew it was shit.
Right.
I was like, nah, it's a garbage picture. I'm just going to send him the ones that he needs. It's all good.
Right. So, I mean, and there was a couple of guys that questioned it, and then, you jumped in and said, look, that's what it was. I was right there. It was my scale. Suck it, And most guys came back and they're like, oh, well, it's kind of it just looked smaller, I'm like, I'm a big dude. And I don't like a lot of people. I don't know if you noticed that, but I think you did because you do it too.
I do
it. A lot of people when they take pictures with their fish, they extend their arms. Yep. I keep the fish right against my body.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So it's a different illusion, and most of the guys were like, oh, my bad, and I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm like, I know I'm bigger and the fish is so close to me, which is kind of opposite of what other people do, when they post their pictures, So, but everybody was cool, and this guy just couldn't let it go.
Yeah, he was, and that's the thing. In this community, there are just those people who are just like, for one reason or another, like their ego just won't let them have, won't let them allow somebody to have their own good experience. You know what I mean? So like, you just got to like crush that. It's like, oh, whatever. Although I think it was last year. I caught a good size one. And what I try to do is if I don't have an image of the scale, I won't put the weight. Like if I don't have a picture of it, I usually won't do it. I'm like, even with like in Fishbrain, I like Fishbrain a lot just to kind of chart my progress. And I look back at my stats for like the last 3 to 6 months or something and look and kind of see like how I've been doing and like where the progression is. You can really see it like when I really started to apply myself.
Yeah.
So I like to do that a lot. So for that, if I'm, I just kind of eyeball some of these for weight. Lots of times if they're under a certain amount, I won't even weigh them and I won't put a weight in. But there was when I first started using Fishbrain, I posted something and I was estimating it at like 2.5. Something like that. It was a good sized fish. It might have even been over 3, but I was like estimating it like around 2.5. And there was a guy who jumped in right away and he was like, I appreciate you taking a guess at like a realistic weight for that, but he's like, that fish is probably closer to 3 pounds, like 100%. And I was like, okay, that's fair enough, And that was when I started thinking, I was like, I got to get myself a scale so that way I can actually get legitimate records, put some stuff together. There is some stuff I would love to do. Like, I'm not saying that I'm the fisherman for this. But I would love to do. I've seen online tournaments where people have to post pictures of their fish on a what do they call that board where they measure the fish? But basically, it's like a tape where you have an end that sticks up. You put the fish's nose right up against it. You lay the tail flat, and then you take the measurements of the fish. It's usually done by inches, not by weight. Only because I think that there's is too much shenanigans that could happen doing with weight. But I love the idea of like this competitive fishing happening, at wherever you're at. I think Ben Milliken did one, a big one recently with like shit tons of anglers from all over the country. And that's what they did. I think he won it actually by like a half inch. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah, he won it. Although he said he wasn't going to take any of the prize money, and he was going to give, like, if he did win, he was going to go second, third, fourth place. We're going to win the top prizes. It was a pretty good pot. Like, it was, I think the buy-in was like $25 or $35, but there were so many anglers playing from all over the place that you were just killing it. And Eric had mentioned to me that I should consider doing one of these sometime, and I was like, would actually be pretty freaking cool, man. My only concern is carving out the whole day. That's the issue. Because I want to get, I think sometimes like they run a certain time, like 6 or 7 in the morning until like, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, depending. And it was basically they look at like dusk to dawn or something like that. So it runs different hours, but I would love that, man. I think it could be a whole lot of fun. But that
could be fun.
It's tough being a bank angler. You're like, I'm really, really, really restricted because there's good bodies of water around here. But, man, having a boat would make life so much easier. So much easier.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
yeah.
Having a boat, even as opposed to like having a kayak. You know what I mean? It's one thing to be out on a kayak all day long. It's another thing to be on a boat. Not only do you have to physically move yourself from one spot to the other, but like you've got to fight all that wind and everything that's going to move you around with a boat. It's, you're a little bit heavier in the water there. You're not, I've only been on a boat. I've never been on a bass boat. I'm hoping to change that soon. I've already had people since the podcast invite me on their boat. So I'm definitely going to be dipping into that for sure. But
nice,
man, that is the freaking, like there are bodies of water I've never fished that are local simply for the fact that as a bank angler, I just don't think it's worth my efforts. Forge Pond, Congamon Lakes, I haven't, nothing. Lake Congamon is monstrous, for at least for our area, and I know a lot of people love to fish it, but I think without a boat, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's
the Connecticut River. Oh my God. But it sucks fishing the river from the bank.
Even from the boat, it seems like it'd be tough.
I don't know, man. There's so much
for beginners like ourselves.
I think I think we can hang. Like there's something to be said about fishing current like that. Like you have to learn. You got to learn. Like just like fishing deep. If you're used to fishing, as deep as you go is like 10 feet or less of water. That's one thing. But when you're talking about fishing, 30, 40 feet deep, and you're throwing baits and you have to actually wait for them to get there to the bottom in order to work them. That is crazy. But it's like you look at guys that fish for like these monster smallmouth on like the Great Lakes. Could you imagine that, Paul? Like,
no.
Oh God, that would be amazing. You know what I mean?
Oh, it would be. It would be. But the time that you would need to devote, to explore that kind of a body of water.
I think honestly, if it was like guys like us, it wouldn't be we take our boat or whatever on that body of water. Hell no. You go out with a guide. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And I think I'm leaning heavily that direction that I think that's something that I just like that's on my radar for something I want to be doing in the coming, years. Like soon, I want to take a trip and go with a guide, and just basically get that experience and learn by doing. Basically, is what I'm really looking for. Something like that. And try to see what I can take. Who knows? You can take away amazing shit with it.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
So, where are we going to fish this weekend?
Where are we going to fish?
Yeah. Oh, your mystery spot.
Yes. Not a mystery spot.
The Devil's Swamp.
But yes. The Devil's Swamp, yes,
Oh.
yes, great body of water.
Yep.
It's kind of swamp. It's kind of swampy,
Yeah.
but there's just so much fish there.
Yeah.
So much fish there.
Well, it's
The only thing that I'm concerned about is
Yep.
is fishing from the bank. I
Yeah.
think we'll have I think there's plenty of area to cover there, but my only experience on that body of water is on a John boat. You know,
Yeah.
So I was out there where the fish are, and I mean, there's just like the pickerel and the pike in there, you know, and even the bass. Like my buddy has caught like 5, 6, 7 pounders there. You know,
What size
got
body
really-
of water is that? Like, what would you compare it to as far as like local area ponds or lakes that you and I have fished? Even if you had to use a unit of measurement and say it's about twice as big as this.
it's maybe the size of, or a little smaller than the spot in Ludlow where we fished, where I caught that big bass.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
that large.
Yeah,
No
but
kidding.
just that one side. You know, I think it's.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the whole.
Not
area.
the
I'm
whole
talking about
area, but
just
that smaller side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, even then, I wouldn't think that it was nearly that big. I would say I kind of expected it to be like more like the size of like the main body of Peppermill, you know, like that. I think that,
No.
yeah, no kidding.
Okay. No. It's bigger than that.
Huh.
It's bigger than that.
Interesting, man. Okay, cool. So we could be dealing with some good bank stuff. I mean, you know, I'm gonna bring. What do you feel like you would be throwing over there?
Over there, I've always had awesome luck with a spinner, so I'll definitely
Yeah.
bring a spinner.
Yeah.
I still think it's way too early for. Well, maybe not. Some guys say that they're catching, but I'm probably going to throw the Whopper Flopper out there.
Yep.
Want to try it? There's a couple of open areas. They're like, I don't know how. There's probably not much vegetation there now, but like late spring, early summer, it gets thick in there. So normally I don't throw any like treble hook
Yeah.
stuff, you
So
know, because you lose it so quick. But
there is a bait that because I love the Whopper Plopper, but I'm with you. Like you have to be very clear of a lot of vegetation. You know, at least. You know, obviously below you, but like if you cast over something, once you get to the weeds, you're just going to pick it all up. But there is Lunker Hunt does a frog, and it's got the legs come out and the feet are kind of like propellers. It sort of swims like the Whopper Plopper, but it has hooks like a soft, what do you call it? Like a topwater frog. They
Okay.
come up and over each side of the legs. In fact, there's even a third hook that's like a trailer hook that comes out, but they're single hooks and they're on top. So, like, you can
Nice.
drag this thing and get that Whopper Plopper action with the legs flipping around. Like, even if you're going over some surface level vegetation, it'll just go right over that. And this is just one of these things where, like, that one time was one time where I went to make a long cast with that sucker, and I had it tied on with like 30-pound braid, and it just like boop, just let go because something got hung up, or I went to go stop the lure, and it was like, see ya. Just snapped.
yeah,
And it was a great, I'll tell you what, because you kind of, it's like the best of both worlds, you know? But I mean, I would not get frustrated like with a frog because, you know, I mean, it looks like a frog to us on top, but that's not what the fish see. You know?
right.
They're seeing it from the bottom. So for them, it's shadows. It's who the hell knows what it is. They're not looking at it thinking it's a frog per se. So, I mean, you know, fishing some topwater, especially if it's low light, like if it's cloudy or something, freaking go for it, man.
Yeah.
You got to.
Oh yeah, definitely gonna bring a jig.
Yep.
Yeah, so those three definitely.
Yeah. I'm thinking I might tie on, instead of tying a Ned rig, I think I might tie on a weedless Senko. Or, you know, that Booyah Popper I really, really like too. Although then I've got those nice red tubes too that I put on those weighted hooks.
Yeah.
really small EWGs with the weights, kind of like swim bait hooks.
They look so good. They look so good underwater.
They look amazing. They're really, really light and finessey. Like they really kind of like hang in the water column a little bit as they, and you can work them. You can kind of work them a little bit like a jerkbait in some ways. They really get kind of erratic, but also when they hit the bottom, swim them across the bottom, and they really do go over most cover without any kind of issue. So that's another one I might want to keep on handy on my finesse rig. But I'm definitely going to have a jig. I'm definitely going to probably be throwing a swim jig. Yeah, probably going to throw a swim jig. And I don't know. I want to do a jerkbait too. But I'll have to take a look at the weeds once I'll probably tie on that Guggen Squad, that Guggen Baits Scout, and I'll throw that. We'll see. I mean, if it's absolute garbage, who knows? I might play with significantly with that. Who knows? I need some spinner baits, man.
You do. I like the spinner baits.
Me too. I was about to make an order for some tackle. Because I got some work that came in today, and actually deposits came in, so I was like, yes. So nice. I might re-up on a couple of things that I'm running low on, and I need to get some decent spinner baits. Well, and actually that's actually the third one. Instead of on that last rod, the one that I used for top water, I might keep the buzzbait on there.
I like the buzzbait.
Yeah, that's on my short list of lures I want to build confidence with. Is the buzzbait, for sure. And that one, I don't know. I think it's a Strike King. Yeah, I think it's a Strike King. And
Strike King, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is like it's black and blue, and it's like, I mean, I have good confidence with the color. I love the fact that I can get that thing up and the action going without having to like really just like burn it on the reel. Like my old buzzbaits, I really, really like this one. So that's, who knows, man, that could be pretty interesting. I have a trailer hook on that right now. I might take it off though over there.
Oh, don't take it off.
No, leave it. You think so?
Don't take it off. Every fish I caught on that was on the trailer hook.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah, leave it on. I mean, not saying that you wouldn't be successful with it off, but I think it will definitely increase your chances.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'll do buzzbait. I might do buzzbait, jerkbait, finesse, and a jig. I think that's probably what I'm gonna have set for my 4 rods.
Well, we'll see.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm looking forward to this weekend. We'll talk. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll talk tomorrow morning, and
I'm sure.
And we'll figure out what time we're getting together and how this is all going to work and all of that stuff. But I think it'd be pretty awesome, dude. I think it's going to be huge. I'm going to edit this.
Good time.
I'm going to edit. I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm going to finish my drink and go to bed. But I will edit this in the next day or two, and I'm going to put this sucker out this week. By Friday, the latest, it'll be out. So I'm psyched. It'll be badass.
Awesome.
You have anything you want to add? Anything you want to say?
No.
Well, that was pretty good. Paul is always, Paul's an interesting guy. I've known him for a lot of years, and he's a great conversation once you can get him talking, and it was really great, just to kind of relive some of that. One thing that I did realize that we never, ever mentioned was that coming out, going into that segment, you heard that REM song, Night Swimming. There's a story there, and we realized after I had stopped recording that we had never gone back to tell the story of how that kind of came to be. It's nothing really crazy. It's just a little anecdote. But I mentioned to Paul, I said, look, I go, it's okay. I'll tell the story at the outro. He goes, no. I think it's probably better if you just make them wait. So we're going to make you wait a little bit on that whole story of what that's all about per se. But maybe I'll make that song like Paul's theme song or something. I don't know. We'll have some fun with it. But fantastic show. Great talking to Paul. Always great. I'm really looking forward to fishing with him soon. And we'll have ourselves a great time. Guys, if there's anything you would like to, if you would like to help the podcast, I'll tell you what you can do. You can start following us on Instagram and on Facebook. Jigs and Bigs on Facebook and on Instagram. Follow us there. and then share with your friends that are into fishing as well. All of your angling alums, go ahead and send them a link to the show. And also just another heads up that we've started the process to get submitted to Apple Podcasts. There's a few people already listening, and if you're kind of savvy with getting the RSS feed, address and all that stuff, and getting hooked up, there's a few people that are already listening. But we will be listed in Apple Podcasts very, very soon. If you're listening via Apple Podcast, do me a favor, review the show if you could. Just give us a rating. It doesn't matter what it is. Go with your gut. If you want to be awesome and give us 5 stars, fantastic. If you want to give me 2, that's okay as well. And if you want to leave a little bit of commentary, write a review for a show, that would be even better. Guys, I've got lots of great stuff that I'm working on right here. I'm having a blast doing this podcast. Probably the most fun I've had of any podcast today, or any podcast I've done. I did get out to go fishing today for a little bit. I had a little situation. Well, I'll share this for another time. But I did go out fishing today. I did not catch a damn thing, but I was going after a species I had never, ever, ever caught before. And it was just basically because I was able to see them and knew that they were in the water. So pretty interesting, guys. I'll tell that story. Maybe the next one. We'll see. I'm working on a couple of guests for the next show. And again, if you guys want to email the show and give some feedback, you can do so at our Gmail address. It's jigsandbigs413@gmail.com. jigsandbigs413 at gmail.com. Thanks a lot, everybody. We will see you next time on Jigs and Bigs.